And welcome again. For the people that doesn't know me, yeah, I am Alessandro Pepe. I'm the owner of Rimessa Roscioli and one of the creators with Lindsay Gabbard and all our team of the Roscioli Wine Club. And you are the privileged people that are part of the Collectors and the Legend Club, which is a super exclusive part of the wine club. Let me explain exactly how does it work, the Collector Club. The Collector Club is about speaking with a winemaker. I started to actually deal with them like 10, 15 years ago, mainly for the restaurant, because I realized that a bottle that is settled down in the cellar of the winery is a completely different experience than a bottle that has been traveling all around from one restaurant to another. So it's easy to buy wines in auctions, but you never know where these wines actually were kept all time long. But also what I've actually noticed that when you don't move the bottle in the first 5, 6, 7, 8 years from the producer, there is something like magic. And trust me, you can speak with any sommelier, with Hugh Johnson or Jensen Robinson, they will always tell you this, that when they go directly to a winery and they taste a bottle that has got maybe 6, 7, 8, 10 years, it's a completely different experience than opening that bottle in a restaurant. So I want to tell you that like 90% of the bottles actually I'm presenting of this selection, the 12 bottles plus the 3 for the Only Reds, are coming directly from the cellar, and they shipped it last 2 weeks. So what I'm talking about is this bottle that is for 2014, that is actually 6 plus 2, 8 years old. It's coming directly from France, and it arrived, I think, less than a week ago. At the moment, we are in October 12th. The same thing I would say for this Amarone, for example, the Villa Spina, the Paitin. This is such lucky, incredible experience because Paitin, he still has, this is actually his last portion of Special Riserva Barbaresco 2007. Just is to understand what's going on, because sometimes people say, oh, but I found that bottle to a different price. I'm like, yeah, but where does that bottle come from? Okay, so you don't know where that bottle come from, who kept it. It's not just a matter of selection. I will repeat over and over that being part of the wine club gives you a lot of privilege, which wine is one of them, especially for the collector of the legend. If you will be in Rome, you have the possibility to have a free tasting of one of our collectors and legend tasting, which is a 17 wines paired with more than 10 plates of food. And you can have a free visit on wineries, and we just actually bought a little house in Etna, so you can have also the privilege to stay there for free. It's in the middle of the vineyard, and to have a private tasting with a winemaker. There is an extra thing that for our American friends that lives in the East Coast, an extra surprise, but I cannot tell you now because it's not 100% sure. But from our friends from the East Coast of US, that they're going to have an incredible privilege if they are part of our wine club. So stay with us. Now, we're going to go to our friend Rocca Giovanni, and this is another bottle that comes from an incredible vintage, 2013. I often said how 13, in my opinion, is a vintage that is astonishing, and in my opinion, is better than 2010, better than the super overrated 2009. Which is, I call it the American vintage, and it was too warm in my opinion. A lot of Barolo had a lot of high rates, but now the wines are going a bit down. Why? 13 is actually passing through NS, which is getting better. I think it's better even than 15 and 16 because it was a cold climate, but not too cold. So you had a bit of a rain, but at the end you had sun during the harvest, and we're talking about typical tradition on Monforte d'Alba. Monforte d'Alba has a mixture of blue marl soil and clay soil, and you will have wines that are strongly truffly. They have like the essence of the rustic and on the same time elegant Barolo, comparing to La Morra where the wine is slightly more round. This is a truffle wine. So if you find any black truffle, idea will be have some white truffle. Impossible to find nowadays. Maybe you have to wait another couple of months to have proper truffle, maybe 1 month. But again, it's totally that. That's the pairing. Again, this wine comes directly from the winery, 2013, set for 9 years in the cellar. And now we're going to go to our Gevrey Chambertain, Le Champeaux. Le Bouree. We are talking about a small negociant from the area of France, Burgundy in France. And you know what's the game, no? They used to say, kind of assess this joke coming from Brillat-Savarin. You know, in order to describe Chambertain, Brillat-Savarin used to say, I don't remember the place. I don't even remember the lady. But the wine, damn it, was a Chambertain. So how Chambertain used to be such an important type of wine, and it's actually ruled the planet in the concept of Pinot Noir. So if you have Pinot Noir all over the world, it is because of this village. It's divided in 7 Grand Cru and other 7 Grand Cru, sorry, and I made a mistake, 18 Premier Cru, I think. And then you have a lot of village, okay? So we have Le Champeau is actually a Premier Cru that stays just on the top of Chambertain and on the west side. And it's actually getting some of the hint of Moët Saint-Denis and some of the structure of Chambertain. Chambertain usually means power. If we have to divide the first 5 big villages of Côte de Nuit, we would say that on Chambertain you find power. On Moët Saint-Denis you will find minerality. On Chambol-Muisemille, you find silkiness. On Clos du Vougeot, you find a kind of a mixture of all the Burgundy style. And on Romanée Saint-Vivant, you will find powerful and elegance at the same time. And with Saint-Georges, you get more on the iron, and metallic, and tannic flavor. So we are here on Chambertain, or the most famous. You have to remember that the oldest vineyard in the world comes from here, Chambertain-Clos-de-Betz, which was actually designed by monks and possibly even by some latest Roman family in the year 632. And actually, this is a beautiful example of how tradition and the fact that you don't change borders and things, and that the amount of wine produced there is the same of 1,400 years ago. Because usually what happens in wine production, that a region becomes famous, and they start to enlarge the border. So that's why Burgundy is such a reference for every sommelier in the world. So we used to go to Burgundy to have our epiphany about wine, because there we understand what does it mean, the concept of terroir, which is impossible to translate. It's not impossible to translate, but terroir is the link between a man, human, or a woman, a human being, a soil, and a climate, and a tradition. Beautiful type of wine. Fortuni was a cold climate vintage, beautiful vintage considered by a lot of producers. Again, European vintage, I would say, comparing to the 15. Oh, about this one here, I would say that you can pair it with some tuna fish or some tartare. Oh, it will be nice if you want to make a little comparison, is actually to compare these two. Because this guy, Podere Fortuni, and is coming from the northern part of Tuscany, he bought some of the plants from Romanée Conti, which is the most expensive wine in the world. And it's a Pinot Noir, again in Burgundy. Romanée Saint-Vivant is actually is the village where Romanée Conti comes from. And he wanted to recreate his Burgundian wine. And to me, was kind of a snobbish doing this thing, but when he let me try the 2009, I was actually quite impressed. You know how suspicious and snobbish I am against the Pinot Noir or outside of Burgundy and maybe Loire Valley. I usually hate Pinot Noir from Italy. I can stand a bit Pinot Noir from Oregon, some from Tasmania, but Napa Valley to me it's not the right place for Pinot Noir, for example. I don't like when Pinot Noir is too flat, too fruity. I like when it's actually get this, hint of like minerality. And I would say Podere Fortuni, especially with the age, was a bit too oaky when I tried this wine like 5-6 years ago. Now, to me, it's perfectly elegant. So you have a 14, 13 years old wine coming directly from the winery, great experience. Would be nice to do it in a blind taste one with the other. And Amarone. I always talk about Amarone in a bad way in my tasting. I don't like the idea that especially a lot of our North European friends are completely corrupted by some importer, exporter that started to fulfill the market, especially in Sweden and Norway, with this overly fruity and sweet type of Amarone, probably matching perfectly with some cold winter in the north of Norway, getting an Amarone. But on the other side, in my opinion, that idea of Amarone was come from the trend of the 90s. Do you remember the 90s were all bold, a lot of fruit, a lot of oak? And to me, Amarone, you have to perceive Amarone as an elegant port wine, or a less alcoholic port wine. So I like when Amarone gets its best when it's at least 10-15 years old. This is exactly 15 years old, 2007, Amarone Classo del Valpolicella, Villa Spinosa, again aged in the cellar of the winery, delivered for the wine club 10 days ago. Trust me, what we are doing with winery, I don't think anyone has the power like Roscioli to convince a winemaker to keep for you 100, 120 bottles, 7, 8, 10 years, and sell it to you to a reasonable price after like 10 years and keep it there for them. Of course, we give some money in advance and we risk a bit because if it's not for the collector, we use it for our wine cellar, but it's an incredible opportunity. On the other side, you know how much I love Luca Pasquero, the wonder boy of the Langhe area. He's like 32, 33 years old guy coming from a family that is producing wine in the same place for more than 450 years. Trust me, in Langhe, 450 years is a lot. It might not be a lot if you go to Contucci, Montepulciano, or if you go in the Chianti area, you have middle-aged castles like Castello Ricasoli, like Antinori. They are maybe 1,000 years old, or even if you go in southern part of Italy. But Langhe is a kind of a new region in terms of Nebbiolo. No? The Nebbiolo has been produced there for 100 years, but finding family that has been staying there in the same place is not easy. And also it's beautiful how the family is actually working together. It's a 3 generation. The grandfather passed away actually a few months ago, but I remember that I was talking with the grandmother, the grandfather, the uncle, the father, and the son, and they were all somehow on the same stage, on the same step, which is not easy. Usually there are conflicts in family. And the problem when you have conflict in family, especially between father and son or mother and son or whatever, it's a problem because wine is about tradition. Wine is a kind of a conservative. I'm progressive, but when it comes to wine, you have to be somehow conservative. You have to, change things slowly. And the way he's interacting with his father, and the way how this wine is getting better and better without losing the soul of the wine, it's absolutely incredible. Luca Pasquero, he's an intellectual. It's nice because sometimes he shares with me like messages on WhatsApp, like. He's such a romantic guy, and he's and girlfriend. Oh, we're here on the full moon, and I thought to give you this. He met Iranian poetry from the 13th century, so, and I don't know. It's nice when he matched wine with some quotes and stuff. When we talk about Barbaresco, this is actually the Sori Paitin, which is a beautiful cru. Typical of the Blue Marl, which is the noble soil of Barbaresco and the southeast part of Barolo, gives you wine that are incredibly austere. How this wine is able to be powerful and elegant at the same time. You need to have some Parmigiano with it, especially if you are trained with Napa Valley wines. This wine's going to be slightly harsh on the first sip, but then with a bit of a Parmigiano, you're going to fall in love and you're going to stop drinking Napa Valley. It's going to be a rehab for you. An incredible wine, 2007, warm vintage, but perfect to drink it now, but it can stay in the bottle another few years, I would say. And Super Tuscan, I Mandorli, Sangiovese. It's not a Super Tuscan technically because this is 100% Sangiovese, but it's coming from the Bolgheri area, which is an area that I usually don't like to spend a lot of time because I don't like the idea of the Super Tuscan. You know that. Cabernet that is trying to imitate Napa, that is trying to imitate Bordeaux, wines made for tourists. I'm talking about, Solaia and Ornellaia and all those wines. Some of the vintages are beautiful, I'm not saying, but value per price, unless some vintages of Ornellaia and Sassicaia, I would not say that they are, incredible wines. So I actually got in touch with this small winery. They had the special Riserva Sangiovese 2012, 10 years in the bottle, and with a bit of oak, but perfectly digested by the wine. It's an incredible expression of a Mediterranean Sangiovese, elegant and earthy at the same time. Have it with some wild boar if you find it. Okay, this is not exactly the bottle that you're going to have because you're going to have the special Riserva Alberello, but I don't have it here with me because he had only few. He gave me only 65 on one, and you are 65 members, and so I couldn't have a bottle because it's on the shipping company now. SRC probably is one of the most interesting Etna wine we tried in the last 5-6 years. And it's purest type of Etna, volcanic soil. And the Alberello, which is the freestanding bush, is a really small production of 600 bottles made every year. And he gave us a part of his private selection of 2014, 16, and 17. So you're going to be really lucky. You're going to have one of these vintages. I don't know exactly which one because he didn't have enough. We had to do 24, 24, and 24. And there are all of them beautiful vintage. 17 will be slightly more warm, 14 colder, 15 something in between. We're talking about a wine that stays 5, 6, 8 years in the cellar, and you're going to find a wine that gets all on the tertial aromas, all on the spices, all on the smoky flavor. And the Sorelle Conti. And you know how much I love this winery, and the video that I will connected to this wine explain more than anything I can say. 3 daughters that lost their incredible father when he was quite young. He was like 60, 62 years old. And he was an incredible winemaker that was absolutely impossible to deal with commercial issues. He used to make a lot of beautiful wines. He didn't know how to sell them. Coming from an area that has been a bit forgotten, northern part of Piedmont, we are not so far away from the Barolo area, but when Barolo started to develop, especially from 1936 to 1938, as far as I remember, they had 3 continuous years of a hailstorm that destroyed 90% of the vineyard. And after that, you had industrialization, people leaving the countryside, going to factories. One of them was Fiat, for example. And so they moved from 5,000 hectares of vineyard planted from Gattinara to Boca to less than 50. You can imagine what does that mean. Now people are slightly going back. And Le Sorelle Conti, the Conti family has been there for a long while. They have a beautiful castle where they produce wine. But the interesting story is that these 3 sisters actually suddenly had to deal with the winery, and they didn't know anything about it because they were not part of the business. Their father were doing it. At the beginning, they struggled, but then they started to work together. They started to taste the barrels, and was a way also to get in touch a bit with the father, I think. I don't want to get too much in an Oedipic issue. One of the sisters was away, she came back, and it was about, okay, we need to save this memory. And the Conti wine are completely, you can feel the Nebbiolo touch, but they're more elegant. I wouldn't say feminine again, but yes, they are. Comparing to a Barbaresco, it would be nice actually to do this comparison, if you want to open these 2 bottles one after the other. An incredible type of wine that I would go for, again, with a bit of a truffle if you want. This is 2005, so again, it's coming directly from the winery. It's coming directly aged for more than 10 years in barrels and 5 years in the bottle. So try to like it, because it's a wine that is not easy to find. Now, for our friends for the Reds Only collection, I have 3 different types of wines that I would like to, fast present them. One of them is the special Riserva Pernanno, the black label from my friend Flavio Sobrero. Pernanno is one of the steepest vineyards of Castiglione Falletto. I'll show you. I'll make a link of the video so you understand what I'm talking about. And is a typical blue marl soil. Again, you face the Castiglione in front of you, and Castiglione Falletto, this is possibly the power. La Morra is kindness, I would say. La Morra is fruity. Serralunga d'Alba is the other village on the other side, where austere. I would say Castiglione Falletto is a power. There is exactly in between. The soil is something in between the one from La Morra and the one from Serralunga d'Alba. I'll show you to you on the map, on the video. And this is an incredible wine, 15, powerful and warm vintage. This is a wine that can stay in the cellar for another 5-10 years with no problem. It started to get on its peak, I would say, after 7 years. Usually 7-8 years is the best time to drink Barolo. But Flavio Sobrero has been in our wine club forever, so most of you knows it already. And Rosso di Sangiovenale, this is a private label. Okay, you're going to find online a similar bottle, which is not this one, because you might recognize here that you have the R of Roscioli, because this is actually a blend of 3 different barrels that we did a test with one of our friends, and I will say hello, which is Mark Chalabi, and with him, with Dario Cappelloni, with Michela, Lindsay, and others. We actually tasted more than 25 different barrels. We selected 3 of them. We created a lot of blends with the winemaker, and at the end we created our own wine. 800 bottles produced only for us, and so take care of it. This is supposed to say, this is a bit young, because this is the first year we do it. So my suggestion is to keep it there for a while. And comparing to the others that are more like already settled type of wine, settled down type of wine that are ready to drink it now. This is, to me, if you like fruity, generous, and bit oaky wine, you can drink it. But if you leave it a couple of years in the cellar, it will be absolutely ideal. And then is actually the evergreen. I know sometimes I put it in the collector club because this is the Schioppettino, and Schioppettino, you know how much I hate the winemaker and how much I love this wine. I'm joking. My political views are slightly different from the guy that produced this wine. I shouldn't buy this wine from him, but Schioppettino is an incredible, super spicy wine. If you want to make a cacio e pepe, you have a lot of recipes on YouTube. I'll send you the link, and this is the perfect pairing. Open the bottle a couple of hours before, pour it in some big glasses, and have this experience of I would say, an oriental spice trip to sensorial experiences. It's all aromas, this wine here. You have cloves and cinnamon. I don't want to say, why don't you write me down which kind of aromas you find in this wine, because there are endless. More you swirl the wine, the more you turn the glass, the more you will find something different. It's a unique type of bottle. It stays 5 years in the cellar before they sell it. Cool, this is it, and I hope you will stay in touch with us, and remember that this is just a part of the show, and wine, it's a weaver, and it is about connecting with us, with winemakers, with winery, with our tasting, with our hub in Rome, and possibly with a future hub in the East Coast of US. I'll let you know soon. Ciao. Last thing, there is one bottle that is missing, which is Rubino, because we ship directly from the winery to our delivery company, and he only had 60 bottles, so I don't even have a bottle to have here for the wine for our restaurant, where all these bottles will be available on the wine list for the restaurant. So it's a Rubino 2000. Palazzola is Stefano Grilli. He's a winemaker from Umbria and Narni. And it's a beautiful plateau surrounded by a beautiful amphitheater. Narni, the Narnia Chronicles actually come from Narni. Not a lot of people knows it, but the movie and the book come from this little place, a village, mythological place in Umbria. And it's not a place really famous for wine. There's a bit of a ciliegolo di Narni, but winemakers, I don't think there are a lot of wine. So he's like last of the Mohican, like there, producing wine in an area that is not really famous. And he started to plant some Cabernet in the 80s. You know that I don't like, Cabernet style of wine in Italy, but when it comes to places like there are not the usual Super Tuscan, and especially having a wine that is 22 years old, you will find this wine that's a bit more musty than usual Cabernet, with a nice refreshing acidity after 22 years, coming directly from the cellar, aged by Stefano Grilli just for us. A beautiful wine that you should go with some fillet steak, I would say, or some game, or again with something with truffle. Thank you.